Welcome back to another compelling episode, hopefully compelling,
We'll see.
episode of TigerBytes, where we discuss the cutting edge teaching techniques that faculty all across campus are using. Today we have with us Chris Reutzel, who's the chair of the Department of Management and Entrepreneurship. Thank you, Chris, for
Thank you for
being
having me.
here. And we invited you not because of your own online work, but because you, as a department chair, have been very supportive and very strategic in trying to deploy online courses to meet student demand. And so we thought hearing some of your ideas and philosophies might be really helpful for other administrators on campus who are kind of contemplating, do I embrace online learning or not?
Well, thank you for saying that. Yeah.
So, what experiences or insights from your academic career have shaped your perspective on the value of online education in business disciplines like management?
Yeah. So, my first exposure to kind of delivering curriculum outside of a kind of non-traditional setting actually took place at Utah State. Utah State, much like Auburn University, is a land grant school. And as a part of that land grant, they had what they called regional campuses. And to these regional campuses, they would deliver curriculum and classes through a satellite system. And so what would happen is you would typically be given, a slot in the evening when folks from all these different areas across, rural parts of the state of Utah could go to a satellite campus and sit in a classroom and observe, someone talk,
Right.
deliver a lecture.
Sure.
And it was two-way. You could speak to one another, and people click their microphone and ask questions. And so that was my first kind of exposure to kind of non-traditional kind of lecture-based education. And I really enjoyed it because it did give me exposure to kind of some non-traditional students that had a lot of work experience
Right.
that I found to be very insightful and relevant to the stuff that I was talking about in my class. The thing that I didn't necessarily like about it was in the evenings. And I felt like, I'd always thought I'd love to be able to kind of record this, to be able to make it accessible to my students after the fact.
Right.
Long story short, I participated in that program throughout my kind of time there at Utah State. And then when I went to Sam Houston State, kind of unbeknownst to me at the time, they had developed a relatively robust online program. Sam Houston State is a school located about 45 minutes north of the Houston area. And because it's got that location, it tends to be a little bit of a commuter school. A lot of folks will, drive from Houston up to Huntsville to take classes. What they ended up deciding to do, though, because a lot of their students tend to be non-traditional, was to grow an online program. And rather than farming it out to other potential vendors to kind of help them create the content, they committed the resources to develop their own online course curriculum delivery program. And so it was relatively advanced. I think at one point, probably over 30 or 40% of their students were wholly online.
Oh, wow.
And so, when I joined the faculty there, one of the first questions the department chair there asked me was like, "Would you be willing to teach online?" And I said, "Well, let me get my feet under me here for this first year, but yeah, if you want me to, I'll totally do it." And so my experience, I think the second or third year I was there at Sam Houston State of creating an online class really kind of changed my perspective on online. Because what I realized very quickly was that I was going to be creating materials that were kind of a one-shot opportunity to get my message across to the students. There was going to be a little bit less of an interactive opportunity for me to kind of read the facial expressions of students and to observe their questions. And so I really needed to kind of have that material dialed in. And so it caused me kind of take a step back from the course that I'd been teaching, for over a decade, I think, at this point, and to think about really kind of deeply, what are the skills that I want these students to leave this class with, and then to build out the lectures kind of from those skills. And it was a lot of work up
Mm.
front. Like, I just remember thinking to myself, what have I done? Like, what was I thinking? I could have just shown up every, semester, delivered my
Right.
lectures like I had, and kind of, made some tangential changes every semester to kind of update the syllabus and make sure the content was kind of relevant. And I just thought, man, I've really kind of gotten myself ahead of my skis on this.
Mm.
And that was my impression, kind of that first semester that I kind of worked through the delivery and development of all that content. And I was barely able to kind of stay ahead of the students throughout that semester. The next semester, though, I quickly realized that I'd really paved the way for a very kind of um, made an investment in my future ability to
Hmm.
kind of use my time. Um, it's very upfront in terms of the costs. They're very kind of, you make a very heavy investment that first semester, or maybe even two, as you develop the course. But then you're allowed to, you're able to let that content, once you release it, kind of be out there.
Right.
And you're able to, constantly make some changes kind of on the margins. But once I had this course kind of structured, built out, the lectures delivered, I found that it saved me a lot of time in the other semesters. It was largely at that point kind of course administration, making
Hmm.
sure, and actually it freed me up to be able to focus more on making the students aware of the things they needed to do to be successful. Make multiple announcements about course deadlines. Be able to have Skype meetings is what we had back then.
Right.
Now we've got Zoom meetings with students to try to talk to them about. All right, so here's the pattern of problems I'm seeing in your exam scores, your other things like that. So it kind of freed me up to be a little bit more of a mentor,
Right.
and it actually gave me a little more time to work on some other parts of my role that were very important, like research and actually pursue some additional service opportunities
Hmm.
that I think kind of laid the groundwork for me to make the transition into administration.
So let's talk about the department now. What are the different online offerings within the department
Sure.
currently?
Let's see. So right now we've got your growth strategies course,
Franchising
franchising
with Franz
with
Lorky.
Franz Lorky. I think that was the first one I was made aware of when I first
Hmm.
got here. I think it's probably the only one at that point.
It was.
We do have the Harvard College of Business has a completer program where there are multiple courses that are kind of built out online in consultation with the Big EO Center um, to develop those courses. So a few of our kind of core management courses are offered through that program. But in addition to that, for our kind of on-campus students or more traditional students, there's with the growth of the Harvard College of Business and the constraints we face in terms of our building, um, we've had to offer additional sections, and the only way to really do that is through
Right.
through online. And so I've been very thoughtful in terms of approaching folks to develop these courses online, typically in areas where we see increasing growing demand, particularly in the Harvard College of Business core courses. So Intro to Management and Principles of Management, so Management 3100, 3810 are two areas, and then Management 4800, which is our Strategic Management
Right.
course, which is the capstone for all Harvard College of Business students. Those two, kind of those two or three main areas, we have tremendous growth and demand for those classes, and in order to keep our section sizes down across these different courses, you know, if you only have so much space in a building, your next best I don't even say next best. Another option is to
Hmm.
pursue an online course, and one of the things that I've tried to keep in mind as we kind of move some of these sections online is to be very thoughtful about making sure that the experience that the students have is as good as, if not better, than they would get in the actual classroom. And that's why I've encouraged folks to use the resources available through the Big EO Center.
Right.
Because they do a tremendous job. Having done a lot of the things myself at Sam Houston State that I see being made available to faculty here, I'm like, man, this is a tremendous resource, and it really helps you move down that learning curve so much more rapidly. And I think the end quality is world class.
Hmm.
It's better than a lot of this, at least as good, if not better, than a lot of the stuff you see some of these large textbook publishers putting together for
Absolutely. Yeah.
online courses. It's just, I've been very impressed.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's kind of remarkable. Our second building, Horton Hardgrave Hall, has only been open for a few years, but we're already
We're
maxed out
yeah,
on
we are
space.
bursting at the seams. We're going to face some real challenges in terms of managing growth. It's a great problem to have, but it still is a little bit of a problem. So
Right.
fingers crossed we can get a new building at some point. Um, we'll see, you know.
Have you faced any challenges in advocating for online education within a traditional university setting? Because sometimes people think, oh, it's not as rigorous, it's not as engaging. Have
Yeah,
you run into any of those?
occasionally, I think I've been kind of fortunate in this regard because within the Harvard College we are experiencing so much growth. Everybody recognizes that there are constraints to classroom scheduling. And so that's kind of given me a little bit of cover to say, well, listen, in order to meet this demand, we don't have enough space. Online is an option, and we're going to do it as best we can and do it
Mm,
very well in partnership with the Big Yo Center that again does a great job. But yeah, some of the concerns that I've heard maybe faculty express a little bit have been, well, will it be rigorous? How do we ensure that the students aren't cheating in these exams? And fortunately, the university as a whole has kind of stepped up with providing us some tools to be able to kind of ensure that academic integrity takes place in these online courses. I think from a faculty standpoint, some faculty, I think maybe because of a lack of experience, or maybe it's because of bad experiences, maybe during COVID, delivering a quote online course, I don't think they appreciate the potential time benefits on the back end of working in an online course. And then also, as a new online instructor at Sam Houston State, I didn't appreciate how much better my face-to-face teaching would be
mm,
as a result of being asked to create an online course. I think it really streamlined my thought process about what it is I need to get students to learn and to understand, and then to think about ways that I could deliver that material and enrich that material. So I actually use some of the exact same videos, or would make those exact same videos I was giving to my online students available to my face-to-face
sure.
students as a resource for them to be able to study. And the feedback I got from them was they absolutely loved it. Um, so, um, from a faculty standpoint, I think that's some of the objection. Administratively, like I said, I've been very fortunate. Our dean has
Mm,
encouraged us, to be thoughtful about where we can add online offerings um, that don't kind of reduce the quality of our overall face-to-face programs.
do you think there are on the horizon any offerings beyond the traditional 3 credit courses? Have you been thinking about? I know we
Yeah,
talked a little bit about
yeah.
possibly an entrepreneurship certificate of
Yeah,
some sort.
I think an entrepreneurship certificate, any of these kind of badges or credentials
Mm,
that folks can kind of gain access to that, they like to post on, their LinkedIn profile, things like that. I'm certainly open to. Um, right now, to be honest with you, I've been so kind of consumed with kind of keeping up with the growth within our current
mm,
kind of programs. But at some time, I would love to be able to kind of, yeah, sit down with a group of faculty that might be interested in helping us create some of those certificates, and that would be, in keeping with kind of our land grant mission of
sure.
extension and outreach, and it's just another way for us to accomplish that. So for sure,
Right. And we don't have that network of branch campuses like
no,
you
no,
described
no,
Utah State having, but making micro credentials available for people
hmm
online would be a great way to serve
yeah.
that land grant mission.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was I was talking to, a week or so ago, but there was a little bit of a conversation about, there are a lot of blue collar entrepreneurs,
Oh, yeah.
you know, folks that own a roofing business,
Hmm.
folks that are, electricians, whatever it might be, and even beyond, kind of traditional blue collar work, other folks that have skill sets that are allowing them to run and maintain a small business, but they don't have that. They have the vocational training for the particular skill, but they don't have the business management
Right.
uh, um, kind of knowledge and understanding. And so, yeah, I think those types of credentials could really fill a need.
There's also a whole set of lifestyle entrepreneurs out there,
Hmm.
personal
Yes,
trainers
yes.
and people who give tours in cities,
Hmm.
walking tours in
Hmm.
cities. And like you said, they know the content of their job real well, but they don't necessarily know how to operate a
Right.
business.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we could probably add some value
I
for
think
those
we could, Dave.
folks.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Have you seen any differences in student satisfaction between online and in-person courses? Of course, you get to see
Yeah.
teaching evaluations every semester.
I don't see a huge dramatic difference. Um, in terms of the numbers, in terms
Mm,
of quantitatively, I think students taking online courses are just as satisfied as those taking face to face. The pattern of the comments, though, in terms of criticisms, I think are a little different.
mm,
So typically, for what I see with someone who might be struggling in an online class, the pattern of comments tends to be this faculty member's not responsive, or at least not responsive quickly.
mm,
And I think that kind of lines up with the type of student that might self select to take an online course. They tend to be folks that, maybe they're working, and so they've only got, a
mm.
3 hour window on a
Right,
Saturday afternoon
right.
to have their questions answered. And so I can certainly understand faculty wanting to protect their own kind of personal time. But I can also understand where the students coming from. If they've got 3 hours on that Saturday afternoon to work on that assignment and they have a question, so kind of navigating those kind of two competing can be a little tricky. But that tends to be the most commonly occurring kind of criticism is, you know, uh, they weren't available. Um, and so I don't know exactly how you address that. I can tell you how I addressed it, which has actually gotten me in trouble with my wife on multiple occasions. And I just tend to check my phone multiple times a
Right,
day. It drives
right.
her nuts. She's like, "Get off of that thing." But to each their own. I think there are some ways that faculty can kind of set expectations a little bit, and then also in terms of when they set due dates for projects, making
Mm,
sure those maybe necessarily aren't on the weekend
right.
so that they don't have to deal with those problems as well. And they can take care of them during the week more. But yeah,
There's some tools coming out to help deal with that too.
are
Like
there?
you can
Okay.
create a chat bot that you load your syllabus into and other pertinent information. And so if the student's in the course and they have a question, when is such and such assignment due, they can just tap that into the chat bot and get an answer.
Wow. Okay.
Much like the customer service chat
Well, that
bots
makes a
that,
lot of sense. Yeah,
we get
I
on
see that.
company websites.
Yeah.
I haven't messed with that yet, but I've read
I
about it.
think there is a faculty member in our department that had mentioned to me that they might be kind of dabbling with that
Mm,
a little bit. That kind of maybe leads to another segue of another conversation. There are a lot of folks at least in the Department of Management and Entrepreneurship that are thinking about ways and integrating artificial intelligence into their classrooms in a variety of ways. And as a matter of fact, I'm hopeful that at some point this fall we might just have a Friday afternoon brown bag
mm,
and just ask anybody that's using AI in their class to just show up, and we'll just sit around, have lunch, and just share for 5 minutes what
right,
you're doing. How are
right.
you finding AI helpful in teaching your courses? And so it might be a great opportunity for folks to kind of exchange ideas.
For sure.
Um,
So before we got started, you were talking about you've been dabbling with Notebook LM. Could you talk about that a little
I
bit?
have. One of our colleagues, Dr. Belcito, uh, you know, talked to me about this AI that would create podcasts based upon PDF documents.
Right.
And I thought, really? Really? Let me try this out. And so
It's
earlier,
spooky
it,
good.
it, it is spooky good. So I took, so I run a simulation in one of my strategy classes. And
Where
uh,
people basically pretend to run a
y-
company and they make different
y-
decisions
y-
about, I'm going to spend X on marketing, I'm going to spend Y on something else.
exactly. Yeah. So they're making kind of resource allocation decisions
Right.
based upon, kind of the results they get from the marketplace and then also kind of what they view their competitors doing. And there's a player's guide for the simulation, and it's a rather sizable document. Like, I
No
mean,
student wants to read
no,
it.
if you need to go to, if you're having a hard time going to sleep, this is what you want to read. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll just take this. It comes in PDF format. I'll throw it into this notebook LM and see what it does. And it created a podcast that was relatively entertaining.
Right.
And so I took that podcast, downloaded it, uploaded it to the Course Canvas webpage, and said, hey, here's the document, but here's also kind of a summary podcast of it, and listen to it.
I think we know which one's going to be more popular.
Yes, absolutely. I should go back and look and see, because you can kind of get some of those engagement numbers on those courses. But yeah, the feedback was very positive, and I was impressed. And so I took some of my my PowerPoint slides and lecture notes, uploaded a few of those as well. Just kind of create these kind of shorter summaries of the material that kind of enriches the class. It gives students another way to gain access to the content. And if that helps them learn the material more deeply and prepares them better for the examinations and the other assignments that they're going to be, conducting in the class, all the better.
Well, thanks for being here.
No problem.
I appreciated your time and your energy.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for being a champion for kind of, our online offerings and kind of leading the way in terms of, showing faculty both in our department and across the college and the campus about, some of the benefits and how online education can be done well. It, like AI, I don't think is going anywhere.
Right.
So, it's another tool we have in our toolbox, and I hope we can use it well.
Yeah. You have any tips for other department chairs?
I think, when you look in terms of, organizations and trying to enact change, one of the key things is to find kind of a champion for that change. And so if you can find a faculty member who has an interest in doing it and the passion to kind of do it well, and you can give them the resources to kind of, whether that be time or some financial funds or access to technology to help them do that, I think that kind of can serve as a starting point to kind of build and then taking that and building off it. And I think that's kind of what we've tried to do in our own department.
So you kind of get that one person to walk across the rickety bridge,
right.
And then other people, okay, I guess the bridge is okay.
Yeah, it's sometimes it takes folks a little bit of, if they can see somebody else do it and do it well, and then see the materials, they're like, oh my gosh, this actually looks pretty amazing. Can I do that?
Right.
Maybe I can. Let me give it a shot. And then once they, my experience has been once folks do it, it just becomes kind of a routine. They get into they develop, again, the learning curve is very steep in the front end. If they can get through that part and then enjoy some of the benefits for a year or two, and then go through the revision process again, it just becomes kind of routine, and they get better and better at it. And then we have a better and better product for our students.
That all sounds good.
Yeah. All right.
Well, that's all we have today for TigerBytes. Again, Chris, thank you for being here.
Not a problem. Thank you, Dave.
And looking forward to a bright future.
All right. Me too. War Eagle.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of TigerBytes. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and gained some valuable insights. Please like, subscribe, and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues. You can find us on all major platforms, and keep learning, keep growing, and we'll see you next time on TigerBytes.